Millions of Africans are living this exact life right now. Their family in one country, their work, their anchor in another.
You are here, your family is not, and you are building something serious in the middle of all of that.
There were times whereby I had to travel in the night, do my classes, and in the night, I'm actually boarding a plane to come down to Nigeria at 3 a.m. my time, especially on Mondays. I am awake because that is the stand-up time meeting here in Nigeria.
In this episode of When Everything Changed podcast, I sit with Adewunmi Adeshina, a founder, a father, a husband, a man who has spent years holding two worlds together across oceans and time zones. We explore what that life demands, what it gives, and what it quietly takes away.
In fact, the last time I was going to Kenya, this last trip, they told me, don't travel. When are you coming back? You go down, make sure you come back tomorrow. Fix his toll on, the business.
Trying to understand, you are in between the work calls and the family calls, right? And this is when there's no role to perform, when there's no founder, there's no father, there's no husband, right? Who is actually here?
I'm someone passionate about everything you've mentioned that is not here.
There is a version to your story that sounds like there's a sacrifice for a greater purpose, and there's also another version that is just, simply put, hard. Which one is closer to the truth?
Stop being a container, become a channel.
There's a category of decisions that play out across distance. The anchor is in one place, the people you are doing it for are in another. And from the outside, it looks like sacrifice with a plan. But the person living it knows there are questions inside that configuration that don't have clear answers. My name is Ifeanyi Mewose. This is When Everything Changed podcast. And today, we are going inside one of those decisions. All right. Thank you so much, Adewunmi, for joining me on WEC podcast.
Thank you very much.
I'm really excited to be having this conversation because this is one conversation I've been wanting to have the longest time. And I'm happy I can sit down with you to do this.
Thank you.
Adewunmi, I want to start not from the usual place, not Trade Lenda, not the business. You are here, your family is not, and you are building something serious in the middle of all of that. From the outside, when people look at you, they see a founder. But I want to understand what the person inside of that life is actually experiencing. And I want to take it from there. Like life, basically, some decisions have a guiding framework. You weigh the options, you make a decision, you make a call, and then you move. But this is somewhat different. When you made a decision to stay here, to build, while your family will be oceans and continents away, was there anyone in your life whose path you could look at, or actually did look at and say, okay, this can work or this will work?
Well, I'd like to answer that from two ways. One is, yes, I had a business partner early on before Trade Lenda who had lived that, but I also understood the rigors that such kind of life actually requires of you as a person. However, I didn't make that decision to move abroad or for my family to be abroad and I'm building here till many years after. So obviously by then he had stopped coming to Nigeria frequently. He had stayed more in the United States. And for me, it was a whole new ballgame. But it started out first with having the opportunity to further my education.
Okay.
I didn't want to settle for the status quo.
Okay.
So in 2022, I was already building Trade Lenda. And I got the opportunity with a bit of scholarship to further my MBA.
Okay.
I've always had scholarships here in Nigeria to do my MBA in one of the universities, especially on the precedents that I lectured in a few universities before actually going into the corporate world. However, I wanted to do that degree abroad. So when this opportunity came in 2022, I knew it was the perfect time, and I had to prepare myself mentally for the requirement of still building a business and actually moving abroad.
You made reference to having a co-founder or a partner rather who had done something like that before, so you had like some sort of framework or a semblance of it. Did it actually help, or did you get there and realize that experience could only take you maybe just so far?
I think it gave me leverage.
Okay.
And one thing that I always believe on is leverage makes the difference in the whole scheme of things. However, did it actually give me the 100% picture? The answer is no. If I want to go into a bit of more details, while I was doing my MBA, to ensure that the business was actually running properly. And at the peak of 2023, in the middle of a fundraise, obviously we had just closed our pre-seed round. My co-founder, in fact, we had just gone to the United States in April of that year, done a whole lot of stuff, a whole lot of pipeline deals ready in the works. And my co-founder suddenly told me, or one of my co-founders suddenly told me he was stepping aside. This was someone who obviously had been the face of the business, because I decided that since I was going for my MBA, I should take the back seat.
Yeah.
And he should be the face.
Interesting.
I believe you can just imagine what, chaos that created.
So I guess at that point, it had to affect the dynamics of you being in a different country, trying to keep stability on, and then trying to then also keep the business that was here in Nigeria. How did you navigate that?
First thing first was the fact that we lost all the days. We shut down the fundraising process, because every time where you enter into a meeting, someone is asking you, what happened? Why did they leave? Is business in a critical mess? Is something happening that we don't know about? So we had to shut down that fundraising journey. We had to restructure everything. In fact, at the tail end of it, I had to come back to Nigeria with my family to ensure that we have some bit of stability. So throughout the second half of 2023, it was more of 2 months here, 2 months there. And by January of 2024...
What year was this? What year was the entire move?
So they moved in 2022 to the UK when I began my MBA program. And my co-founder stepped aside, or one of my co-founders stepped aside, who was critical to the business in 2023. So obviously, this was in June 2023. So from July to the end of 2023, there were a whole lot of back and forth that were happening. And by 2024 January, I had to come back with my family to re-strategize and focus on building the business with systems and structures that would ensure that even if I'm not around, the business can actually move. And when I mean not around, I'm talking about physically.
It would seem that, I actually find this very eye-opening, because when people talk about moving, I don't want to use the word relocation, because there's always this, you're running away. But I think the word moving just sort of like keeps things at a very level where we can manage properly. Most people do this thing called moving, and there's usually not this clear structure or this plan. But in your own case, it was anchored on the fact that you wanted to go to school, keeping in mind that you also had a business in Nigeria that needed to grow, right? So that was like the price. But when you were making that decision, was there any moment you tried to explain it to someone close to you and realized that they probably couldn't fully grasp the concept of what you wanted to do? Yes, it might seem like the underlining was you wanted to move, but in the structure that you've defined it, were there people that you tried explaining to and they felt, okay, this is crazy?
So for me, I think my own mindset is a bit different. Why did I even want to go abroad? If we start from that perspective, I think it will shape a whole lot of things that has helped me keep up with both the global influence and also the business that we're building today. I see an MBA, or I saw an MBA as an opportunity to actually broaden my scope, increase the way my lens of the world actually worked. I didn't want to be a local champion, and I still don't want to be a local champion. I've been privileged to be under the tutelage of my pastor and mentors, who have given me that perspective to life, that you shouldn't build just for Africa. You shouldn't build just for Nigeria. You can start with Nigeria, you can start with Africa, but you can have global relevance. with that in mind, those were some of the underlying issues or factors that actually pushed me to go. However, I love Nigeria. I am going not with the mindset of its finality, but the mindset that I will be one of those people who will light up that bulb in any country where I am representing Nigeria. So with that in mind, it means that I still have to always have the recharge button. And what does that recharge button actually mean? It means that I have to always come back to base to charge up if I want to continue to light up in any country I find myself. Yes, on your question, just to answer that, there were people I spoke to who didn't understand it. There were people I spoke to who didn't think it makes sense. And just as any founder, most founders go abroad without being able to tell their investors that they're abroad.
Also,
100%, in fact, 99% of them.
Don't tell the investors they are actually abroad.
Yes.
Make me understand that.
Because the investors don't believe that you can be abroad and still be fully committed to building a business. Remember, they're betting on you, not the business model. Especially at the early stage, they're betting on you. So when you tell them that you're going abroad, two things happen. Most founders go abroad without actually preparing to some degree. So when they get abroad, they start doing the mass of exchange. Here in Nigeria, you pay a rent for maybe 5 million a year, or 10 million a year. Abroad, you're spending between $2,000 to $3,000 or even $4,000 every month in just rent, minus utilities and other expenses. So oftentimes, founders who are not well prepared get in that headache of saying, if I can earn $7,000 abroad, why do I have to continue to build my business here? And to give context, I did an MBA in one of the best schools, Ivy League schools in the United Kingdom. Immediately, I had a lot of offers. I had even offers even up till, I still get offers actually. And I still had offers, ranging up to $10,000, $12,000 that was fully remote. There is no way you would take such offer and you'll be able to continue to build your business. And this is why if you speak to people or you speak to your investors, they know that there's that temptation. So they will be scared for you, and most of them will see it as making sense. And most founders oftentimes, because they are not mentally prepared and they also want to continue to live that big life, they want to grab what is on the table.
That's actually an angle that I had not considered. Because even though I wanted to talk about this conversation, I wanted to be very broad about the scope of the people that it's affected beyond just founders. But it's interesting to see that even from that founder perspective, there's a challenge. But you mentioned that you had your reasons for wanting to go. And then you spoke to different sort of people that, like your mentor, who sort of affirmed your vision. How did you make peace with that? Because you also spoke to people on the other side of the divide who didn't think that what you were trying to do was tenable to begin with. How did you make peace with, regardless of who is saying what to you, made peace with whatever is the outcome of decisions you wanted to go do?
So from day one, I knew that the business would not suffer. I knew that at first I had one of my co-founders who was sound in terms of the business side. He's still a founder even today. He's building his own stock successfully well. And I felt like, that could be a shock absorber while I'm away. And then as business grows, obviously, I would always have to
the founder was here?
Yeah, the founder was in Nigeria.
Okay.
Yeah. So I knew that I would have to shuffle between abroad and Nigeria in terms of the building. But obviously that dynamics changed, with its own exit, whereby I then knew that it was time to actually build sound systems.
Okay.
So yes, there were people who were supportive. There were people who were not supportive of the whole space. And the reality is, just as anybody who moved abroad, there were times whereby I didn't have money. Because that's the temptation. In fact, I remember when I took my other co-founder who stepped aside to the United States, and I remember him cracking a joke that because actually we were trying to fundraise, right? So we're also at that point whereby we didn't have money, or technically we didn't have enough money, right? So he was asking me if he should go wash plates so that he can actually make money.
Wash plate.
Yeah. And I'm like, I can't bring you as a business person to the United States and you go wash plates. It means that the mindset was not in alignment at that point, or it was not big enough for him to see the big picture. It's a lot of sacrifice, but I knew that if I'm going to be taking someone to the United States, I needed to ensure that I had enough money to make sure that he had a great time there, achieved the goal, and then comes back to Nigeria safely. And even if it meant taking out of my own personal saving to make sure that that was done, I made it happen for him. He was able to spend that time. We engaged the various stakeholders who were available. And after a week, he was able to return back to Nigeria.
I want to bring this back to you now. And this is within the context of how you are able to deal with the distance, especially when you're here, right? And this is within the family dynamics, because you did mention that you moved with your family, you brought them back, and they're back there currently. And here, you're in Nigeria currently. I'm trying to understand, right? Being physically away from the people you're responsible for, it has to change something. It has to sort of like affect something. Something has to give. And I'm wondering what that distance does to your sense of responsibility as a father, as an husband, and as the person that your family looks forward to. Because make me understand what that, because a lot of people are currently experiencing or living this reality. And there's so much more people that would be embarking on that reality. So it makes sense that we understand what that looks like, especially when, in the case that would happen, the major anchor would need to be back here in Nigeria. And I understand why people would say they want to move their families abroad, for so many reasons. And in certain instances, one person had to remain back. But what does that do to your sense of responsibility for you?
Okay, so first of all, to answer that, I would like to say that it's not there's no roadmap.
Okay.
They don't hand you a blueprint that allows you to be able to know how it will work. When I were in the UK, it was easy for me to actually work till night or be with them till in the evening and take the last flight Virgin, in the night, from London Heathrow. In the morning, I'm actually in Lagos. But after I brought them for that 6 months or about 8 months actually, to Nigeria to restructure and to build systems, we actually didn't return back to the UK. We returned to Canada. So it became much more tougher to do a whole lot of quick trips.
Because with Heathrow is about 6 hours. Okay.
So one thing that has really helped is system. I have specific times that I don't entertain meetings. If I must attend to meetings, it must be very critical to the business success. So right from when I was in school, I had these layers, quadrants. One of it is my spirituality, which is my relationship with God. The other was, while in school, was academics, but now it's business. The other is family. Now, there's no particular hierarchy, right? But again, it's God, spirituality, business, family, and my personal development, which also has to do with my health. Those 4 quadrants, or that dimension of that quadrant, actually must not at any point in time suffer. Would there be times whereby there's actually one taking more time over the other? Yes, we're human beings. But if you understand that those cardinals are the pillars of what is holding you, then you will make sure that you are committed to ensuring it succeeds. So let me give you what a typical day looks like for me.
Okay, tell me.
First thing first is I don't work abroad. When I mean I don't work abroad, I mean I don't work for another company aside from my business.
Yeah.
The business is my employer. And I respect the fact that the business is paying me. So I work and I'm devoted to giving extra hours to that business, just as if I'm in a paid employment. It's not an option. Failure is not. So on the family side, there are times whereby I've had to surprise them without actually telling them that I'm coming. Tell them that, oh, I'm on a business trip, oh, I'm in a meeting, or I'm in this, and then the next thing they see is
Daddy.
I'm around. There have been sacrifices. Founders sometimes wake up and you are traveling that much. I travel a lot, actually. I was reviewing my trips last year. It's a lot. But the question is, have you found an hack to actually getting cheaper tickets? Are you flying business class? Those are some of the things that sometimes founders, yes, for strategic purpose, for meeting of people, you want to fly business class. But how many times do you fly business class and actually engage
people?
Because you're tired anyway. They are also tired. They're trying to sleep. So for me, it's more of, can you fly economy? And if you have long travel times, get access to the lounge. That is where you actually meet the people that you want to talk to, right? And you want to actually foster business growth. So for me, I travel a lot. That one, I don't joke with it because my family must not suffer. I must speak to my kids before they go to school. In fact, I must be the first person, to speak to them when they wake up. There's a particular time they wake up.
But there's a time difference constraint. Right now that you have the destination is Canada. How do you?
Yeah, so it ranges from 5 to 6 hours. And what that means is it's either my 12 noon or my 1 p.m. Unless it's very strategic. My calendar will not have anything blocked for 12 or 1 o'clock. If there's an overlapping meeting, I must speak to them while they are preparing for school. And 90% of the time, I must speak to them when they are going to school. So it means that most likely that is my lunch break time. So with that in mind, I'm able to speak to them. And to also then create a bit of a balance because they would also be away for a few hours. Then it means that I can focus back at work. Once they are coming back, no matter where I am, I must speak to them. One of my colleagues mentioned that, how do you do this? You always say, I want to talk to them. Because it's very important. They must not miss my presence. And then let's take it the other way. Back here too. At 3 a.m. my time, especially on Mondays, I am awake because that is the stand-up time. It's either 3 a.m. or by 4 a.m.
How do you mean stand-up time? Like their wake-up time?
No, so stand-up time means that meeting here in Nigeria.
Oh, okay.
So it means that I am literally...
Oh, like when you are over there?
Yes, when I'm over there. I'm actually flipping the goals now to another quadrant to say that when I'm over there, I must attend those meetings because it sets the pace for the week. I check in and I have access to the cameras to see what's happening, which can be random checks to know what's happening. Before 2023, I didn't have that. But after 2023, those were part of the systems that I kept in place to ensure that I'm on top of my game.
Interesting.
Again, this is not to micromanage anybody, but just the fact that people know that anywhere, whether it's across the outlets or in the main office, I have access to be able to see what's happening. If there's power outage, I know how many minutes it was down. If there's downtime, the internet is not going to work. So I'm not going to see the videos on my phone. I will know what's happening there. If there are issues, I have access to literally almost... So my work as a CEO is 2 things. 1, attract the right resources, which includes people. The second thing is keep them happy. Once I can do those 2 things, I'm able to keep them on top of their toes, and they'll deliver excellently. So those systems really, really helps, because while, in fact, sometimes people don't even know whether I'm in Nigeria or I'm in Canada. When they think I'm in Canada, they're actually thinking wrongly, because I'm actually on ground. When they think I'm in Nigeria, because of what they see on social media, I'm actually in Canada. So a twist of that play keeps everybody on checks, and it allows people to be able to deliver, because now we have remote work, right? So it means whether I'm in Nigeria or I'm abroad, the only difference is I can't take physical meetings. How many physical meetings happens now? So that play, when it comes to the other quadrant of well-being, personal development, is something that is a bit tough in the midst of all of this. People say I've grown a bit fatter. I've added some weight. I think the frequent trips, plays around with my head. But I think what that does to me is, most of the times when I'm traveling back, my body is already resetting. I'm already sleeping in Canada, Nigerian time. And when I'm here, it takes a bit of maybe few days, 1 week. I'm still in Canada time zone, but I'm awake frequently, Nigerian time. So it's a whole lot. Like I said, I'm just coming from Kenya, right?
Yeah.
So that's even 7 hours, difference all of a sudden. So I'm always trying to find that balance, and at the same time trying to maintain that cordial relationship. But most of all, it takes its toll on my family. It takes its toll on the business. But creating that time to just be part of them as we speak now. You notice that even before this session, I had a call.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be 1 hour call. It can be just as little as 1 minute, 2 minutes. Who did I speak to? Can you take a
Your
guess?
family, I guess.
I spoke to my wife. Before I came in, I made a call. So just, putting those systems, because the reality is there's no balance.
Yeah.
I was watching a clip recently whereby two couple, like husband and wife, a couple, they were talking about how they were able to build $1 million businesses. And the reality is there's no blueprint. You just need to make it work. Am I going to miss my wife? Yes, I do. Is she going to miss me? Yes. Are my kids going to tell me, in fact, the last time I was going to Kenya, this last trip, they told me, don't travel. When are you coming back? You go now, make sure you come back tomorrow. Those were their words. But the reality is you make them understand why you need to be away. You give them that opportunity that you're going to keep speaking to them at different points in time, and you ensure you keep to those words. When things start falling apart is when you tell them that you're going to speak to them, or they're expecting that you're going to be speaking to them at a particular time and you don't show. That's where the issues start.
In all what you've said, I think I've found you compensating, or I don't want to say you. I think maybe in your own case, you actually even overcompensate, especially when it comes to like how you handle the commitment to family, especially when you guys are apart. You're calling them at every point in time, you're scheduling times to call, you have like a fixed schedule that guides, all of that. And one important thing I also saw is that you also make that time to travel when it's convenient. But what happens, it's easier for you because you are a founder. So I want to believe that founders have, while you built some level of cushion because the business sort of like makes it happen. How would you have dealt with this if you weren't a founder and you're just like a regular employer, say an executive in a company, and the opportunity to be able to be there all the time, or at least the time that you want it, it's not necessarily available? How would you have dealt with that?
First thing I want to say is that it's tough, actually. I have friends, I have, senior colleagues who actually work in Nigeria and their family abroad. It's tough. Because it's a whole different ballgame. However, we played around numbers before. If you're able to earn the equivalent of about $5,000 here in Nigeria, but again, the question is, how many people earn that?
Yeah.
Right? One of the things I've been able to do for most of my own senior colleagues and also a bit of friends who are close to me is to help them and together, collectively, find a way to earn. You can't have one stream of income. It can be passive income which doesn't disrupt your day to day. There are so many people who are going to be watching this video and we say, oh, Trade Lenda's money is what he's using to travel. That's a lie. For context, I've driven Uber before. I've said that in different channels. There is dignity in every labor. Before this show started, I told you about how you can make as little as 5,000 naira. And that 5,000 naira can be your cash cow, where you can do anything, anytime, any day throughout the year. So while you are committed because of the impact case of the business, you are actually having passive incomes globally that allows you to pay your tax globally, but at the same time, travel. Especially when you are not unnecessarily lavish. People think I have so much money. In fact, LRS, for the records, kept me on the high network individuals, wrote me a letter and brought out a very crazy bill for me. And I smiled. Yes, I'm rich, but I don't know their classification of what HNI means. Maybe because they see me travel, they believe this guy has a lot of money. But again, back to the question. If I were to be a regular executive, it's going to be tough. And that's why you see a whole lot of people resign. It's tough. It's not easy. I can go a month, maximum a month without my family. Maximum. If you want to be able to maintain those 4 quadrants that I mentioned earlier, you can't go a month. I don't know how people do it. Some people go 6 months. Maybe perhaps their kids are much more grown up, maybe their spouse. How do you want to do 6 months and you want to have a balanced life? Yes, there's no absolute balance, but you want to have some form of steady life. I don't know how they do it. But in my close circle of friends, of whether it's executives or founders who do it, especially those who are committed to actually having some form of balance. Not absolute balance, but some form of balance. None of them go away from their family for more than a month. And the only way you can do it is actually having passive incomes. And a cumulative of about 5,000 US dollars equivalent. If you are able to do that, there might be some months whereby you don't earn that. There might be some months whereby you earn maybe slightly above that or any of those kind of stuff. But if you're able to have something around that range, it allows you to be able to remove the burden from the business or from your organization or whatever is the case. And then you still have that room whereby you can actually book your tickets ahead or have an hack to platforms like Skyscanner. Again, maybe they want to make me a brand ambassador or something. Whereby you can look out for tickets that are cheap. And you can lock down those tickets that would allow you to be able to travel, flexible tickets that you can change if anything comes up and you have to make those changes while still meeting all your obligations. But if you're having a physical job where you have to be physically here, I don't think I have the blueprints. There's no blueprints. But if you are able to do some form of hybrid for your workflow, working while you're there, having an average passive income plus your main income of about 5,000 US dollars, I think it will be easier.
Why 5,000 US dollars too?
So I did a bit of breakdown. Those days, before the hike of things, it was actually 3,000.
Even that 3,000 is on the high side for the average Nigerian. I know people would say travel is expensive. If you want to do even relocation as a whole is expensive. So maybe this conversion is not necessarily for everybody, right? But at some point, people would find themselves in a very complex situation. And this is one of those complex situations. And finance is one of those things they need to consider. But even for 3,000, even for 5,000, I'm just curious why that number, because it can come off as on the high side. So I just like to know what are your thinkings around that?
Okay, so the dynamics is simple, right? Depending on what kind of apartment you're staying in abroad, whether it's in the UK, whether it's US or Canada, you would spend average of 1,000, 1,500 to maybe 2,500, 3,000 for rent.
Because there's a family involved.
So there's a family involved. Unless you want to keep your family in a place whereby every time you're not thinking straight while you're here. If you want them to at least have some modest form of living, you will definitely spend around that range. The truth is, most of that money will not come from your regular pay. And most of that money will not come from Nigeria. I think I've been privileged to be able to have that system that allows me, in fact, most of my money comes from the United Kingdom. I still have residence there, but I'm not always physically there because now my family is in Canada. But the reality is most of my money comes from there today. And I don't actually work there, in quotes. In case of any LRS people that are listening to this video, I pay my tax when I need to pay my tax, right? I think my own case is dynamic. Let's just be frank. My case is a bit unique.
Yeah, it is.
Because it's not what is conditioned for everybody.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was just thinking now, what if you weren't 100% responsible for the everyday sustenance of the family over there and what that does to you as a person generally? Because I know that, I mean, other times it could be that the people find themselves in this kind of situation are thinking, okay, so because of, for some reason or other, they can't keep up with the maths for $3,000, $5,000 formula is not maths and it's not working. And then the responsibility now then falls in the hands of the family over there. How do you think such kind of dynamics would work? Even though this is not your reality, but I'm just curious.
So if you haven't actually jumped into it, I would say plan very well. I didn't just jump abroad. I had several years to plan, and then the opportunity showed up with the right planning. I had about maybe 50,000 US dollars in addition to the scholarship I had when I was going to the UK. My wife also did not work for one day in the United Kingdom while she was there. Again, people think, so how did it?
Yeah, I'm curious too.
There were times whereby we were broke. That's true. That's the truth. But again, this feeling of making money, passive income, always comes up. And this is why I said this 4 quadrant is very important. If you remember, spirituality, God is one of those things. And it doesn't mean I'm lazy. And it doesn't mean she can't work. But if she's working with 3 kids while I'm away, when I mean working, I mean like proper job.
Yeah, active work.
How do I want to actually find that balance with my kids? Who will take care of them at that age?
Who watches over them?
Who watches over them when they're away? Who guides them? Even though she's not, in quotes, working, now obviously she has a business in Canada and she's making money from there now, right? But before then, there was no business. And that's also part of the things that we had to have a conversation together about, to say, see, we've had this experience in the UK. Let's come back, learn a skill. Because when you move to Canada, you're still not going to be doing the regular 9 to 5 because I'm away. Somebody needs to fill this gap for these kids. It might not be quantifiable in money, but in the long run, it saves you all those money you're pursuing. So we came back and she went for a full course, which today is her business. And now that provides, in fact, literally almost all the expenses in terms of basic things in the house. That business caters for that. Our business caters for that. And she works from home, right? So she came to Nigeria with me while I was building systems and structures. Yeah. And then she went back with that new skill and certification that she had. And then now she's using that to work from home, half time. And by September of this year, the last born will be in school. So now she would have more time to be able to play around with her time on the business, and if at all she decides to take on a 9 to 5. But I can say that, for a regular person, if you've not gone, plan. What skill can you have? What ways can you make money? Everybody has it. I'm sure with the little engagement that I've shared even before we started this session, I've shown you how you can make money outside of even the regular. That is one skill that I think that because of these 4 quadrants that I pay so much close attention to, it basically has helped me because our source is God. The elements of the earth, the laws of the universe, the principles of God, they are straightforward. 2 plus 2, you get your answer. In fact, even non-believers, because they acknowledge that supremacy of the principalities and powers and the spirituality that works. Again, now I'm not here to preach. But again, whoever says there's no God or there's no spiritual being, you can't be in the middle. So I mentioned $50,000. I've been preparing and all that, but the $50,000 did just come. And it wasn't from the business money. It was some people who had done some, in fact, 2 events happened that actually made me know that it was time to go to my MBA. One was the fact that all of a sudden somebody used my face, my picture. Here in Nigeria, a very popular brand used my picture across all the outlets in 2023. So it's 2022.
What for?
They used my face. I don't know, maybe their design guy didn't do their work well or their maths. They just went online, picked a picture, saw their handsome face, and put it across all their channels. But
As
that was not
a
where the
brand
money came.
campaign?
As a brand, they were trying to promote a whole new product, and they used my face.
So you got paid for that?
Remember, I said I don't know where the money came from.
Okay.
So obviously, I could have made money from that.
Okay.
But my actual money came from another organization who had also done something similar and needed me to endorse them for doing such. They paid me a sum of $50,000 as compensation. But passive income is very important because $50,000 could have finished within months. But if you're conservative, it can last you a bit, right? Because obviously I had some scholarship. So how did passive income really come in? The branding conversations for people. Today, my 30 minutes with people, I'm able to earn somewhere around close to, I don't want to give figures, but, some LRS people might be watching, and they would think that money is from here. So let's just, but wherever I am. And this is the whole essence of me going to do my MBA anyway. I wanted to be somebody that I could speak and I could actually charge for my time.
Okay.
So I earn in pounds and I earn good money. With that, passive income is able to take care of my bills. I've seen financial modelers, finance experts who also provide services globally and are able to attract dollars and pounds. I've seen tech guys who are able to provide some form of services and they charge. Somebody just charged me 9 million naira for a project, a tech guy. So that kind of person can't tell me that he's not earning passive income, right? So if you don't have passive income, it's either you go abroad and you just focus on abroad or you stay here. But I don't think I have the blueprint. Let's just be sincere. I don't have the blueprint.
That makes sense. Because there's so much of conversation in between that. And we're trying to give a name to this. And you're talking from your own lived experience, so I can understand. So still speaking on what all of this does to your sense of self, I'm trying to understand, you are in between the work calls and the family calls. And this is when there's no role to perform, when there's no founder, there's no father, there's no husband, right? Who is actually here?
I'm someone passionate about everything you've mentioned that is not here. So I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a builder. In fact, coincidentally, I'm wearing what you call back to build. Okay. So I'm someone who believes that I'm blessed to be a blessing. So I'm a channel in which other people can actually grow, other people can be blessed, people can have source of living, source of livelihood, and take care of their family. And I'm also an agent of change for Africa and the globe. And I mentioned the globe because at some certain stage in my life, one of my prayer points, which basically I still thank God for today, is to have global relevance and impact. Today, I'm happy that I've facilitated different conversations, maybe not publicly celebrated, between the United Kingdom and Nigeria, between Canada Trade and Nigeria. Programs from across the globe that are actually making impacts here in Nigeria.
So just to cut you, doesn't all of this make it feel like multiple incomplete lives as opposed to one whole? Do you see it that way?
I won't really say that, because yes, you find yourself in different dynamics at different points in time. You're sitting on one end, facilitating different conversations. But in the middle of it all, who are you solving for? I have devoted my life, at least for the last close to 10 years now, towards solving for micro, small, and medium-scale businesses. So when I enter each of and every of those rooms, I'm standing as a representative for those businesses, whether it's in the UK, whether it's in Canada, or whether it's in Nigeria. Why the business front is focusing heavily in Nigeria, the reality is that businesses want to be able to become global. They want to be able to sell their product globally. They want to be able to earn in FX. So with those conversations of being able to cross-sell, it helps me to be in a better position to lead those conversations, especially actually understanding the needs and the requirement and the standards of what the UK needs, what Canada needs, and how Africa can actually meet up.
In all of what you've said, I'm trying to really get the trade-offs, because there is a version to your story that sounds like there's a sacrifice for a greater purpose, and there's also another version that is just, simply put, hard. Which one is closer to the truth in all of these versions?
Everything I've achieved, everything I've done has an element of God in it. Everything I've done, I've achieved, is by the hands of God. When we started Trade Lenda, for instance, it was at a point where I had had a previous startup, which was leading into the COVID pandemic, supporting the small businesses to be able to have online storefronts. And in the middle of that, we had a transaction with one of the popular brands here in Nigeria, and it failed. It was billions of naira. Everything was going smoothly, and in the middle of it, it just got punctured. But because, again, of those 4 quadrants, again, when it looks hard, it's because the reality is you need to know what you stand for. This transaction, I had the choice of walking away without actually meeting my obligations as a business owner, or restructuring that payment, because it wasn't my fault. The transaction was facilitate this marketplace, the people, the merchants you have, farmers and the rest, mop up product to the tune of 2.1 billion. We've signed the contract. Every time you supply, you make your payment. They had their agent in the feed. I had my own representative in the feed. Obviously, my agent got greedy, did not check the kg, increased the price, thought he was making 1,000, 2,000 difference. At the end of the day, everything got messed up. I had, after mopping up repayment back, over 30 million plus to pay. That's after mopping everything in cash that we had. How do I expect to pay? I could have shifted the goalpost and say, oh, it wasn't my fault totally, your own fault too. But I went back to my stakeholders and I told them, see, I need to pay this. Again, this is where, Dr. Benjamin Peter, one of my mentors and business partners then, came in. He was very instrumental. He was the person I said I learned from.
Okay.
Right? And he said, you've made a mess. But one of the things is that everybody has their scars. Today in church, a pastor mentioned that, look around. There's no billionaire that has not lost billions before. If you're still losing 10,000 naira, let me say, you can't even grow to the tune of being a millionaire. We all have our scars. But owning up to it, if you read Femi Otedola's book, you see the series of challenges he has also been through.
And the losses.
If you read about Dangote, if you read biographies from people of faith in the past, you see all the times whereby they've had to restructure. If you talk about, the founder of, can't remember his name, but even Kosh Charis, when he actually stood as a guarantor for someone and ended up paying the person's debt. I paid every penny to this company. Today, that organization is no more. But my business, my street credibility, my integrity has been preserved. But one thing again, on this 4 quadrant and on the circle of God, is the fact that every time I commit to a greater purpose rather than myself, more resources have been entrusted to me. To be very specific, last year, there was a transaction that I supported in. And because of what happened globally within the supply chain, there were a lot of disruptions. Again, committing towards a mentee or a supposedly mentee. I can tell you that that in itself could have displaced the business. But whenever you know that God is like the one, it won't make sense to everybody. It won't make sense to everybody listening to this conversation. But whenever you know that God is actually the one in charge of your business, that even when you make business decisions, some are right, some are bad, but all things work together for your good. You will make it in good faith, and there will be a compensation and always clarity way out. We made that business decision. It didn't go as it's supposed to go. The guy was a bit of fraudulent. We've been recovering back all our funds. But there was another thing that happened. An opportunity came out. And because of all what we've done, we were able to get back even much more than was out. Remember, I told you in 2022 that I got $50,000. 2 things that happened. The first one where I got the $50,000 was an event that happened in 2019, which I entered also in good faith. But they never kept to their words. And in 2022, they kept to their words by paying me. The other brand is a very popular brand. Almost, I'm sure if I look at the gadgets right now in this room, there might be a gadget that belongs to them. Maybe you even bought that gadget from them. They used my name. I didn't pursue it. Sometimes you just let it go. You follow peace with all men. If you follow the principles of the Bible, or if you're with the devil, follow the principles of the devil, you will be okay. That is the truth. So it looks hard. It might not be something that you can really define, but I've seen cases and use cases whereby people actually, I don't know if you've heard of LG Lotonu.
No.
Maybe people who want to understand everything I'm saying, maybe it doesn't make sense. They should go and watch the biography of LG Lotonu, movers and shakers of mountains and all that. If they watch that, they would understand whereby he then said God owns 99% of the business and he owns 1%. It was no longer of a case of God, where do you want? It was no longer a case of my money. It was not a case of God, what do we do with your money?
Interesting. In all of this, right, beyond trying to manage expectations on both sides, keeping everyone happy, keeping yourself happy too, because you are here, you are trying to build, and then you also have expectations to meet across the other divide. What has this cost you, and what have you had to give up?
Again, as mentioned, there's really no absolute balance. It's actually, that continuous effort to ensure that there's some form of comfort on, the spread of the quadrant. In terms of what I've had to give up, a lot. Time with the family is very critical to me. Extra work hours while I'm over there, early wake-ups, sometime in between naps. Sometime, having to, have maybe like a stretch, a week or 2 weeks back to back without actually sleeping, doing what people take 3 months to do, doing it in 1 week or 2 weeks, which sometimes look ridiculous. Let me give an instance of my yesterday. I traveled down, came back into town, and normally I'm supposed to be resting. But I went to close a deal yesterday. Immediately I came back to town. In fact, I had 3 meetings actually. 3 meetings yesterday. One, earn my passive income. The other, close deals, and I was happy, right? I think we are all given the blessings of 24 hours. How we make use of it is what makes the difference. Whenever I come into town, especially when I come into Nigeria, I know that I have a very short window. It can be 1 month, it can be 3 weeks, it can be 2 weeks. Within that period, I need to itemize end to end how I want my week or my month to go. So I don't go without a plan. These are principles I've learned from just studying biographies like Archilotunu that I mentioned, and different other players, Rockefeller and others, Bill Gates and others, right? And even reading the book of Femi Otedo. All of them have the same principles that they followed. Spending the extra hours, working smart by building strategic relationships. If you have strategic relationships, you will be made for life. If you have your integrity standard, you'll be made for life. If you are also not living too lavishly, when you are not yet there, some people are not yet there. I'm still work in progress. That is the reality. That's what I tell myself. But I see some people in my category because of the kind of money they've been opportune to touch. I've touched a lot of money, that's the truth. Courtesy of the business. But those money are not my money. The money belongs to the business. Founders, business owners, executives sometimes make that mistake, or because you're touching money, you think that money is yours. You are first a steward. That money has been entrusted in you to make the best use of it and make sure that those people get back their money. Once you lose that credibility in the market, once you behave differently, you have lost everything. So one of the things that has helped me is keep myself modest. People say I'm not flashy, I'm not loud. They don't even know me in the ecosystem sometimes. I don't care about being known. Am I doing the work? Right? Am I delivering impact? Do I have the numbers? That is what really counts. Do I have my integrity cleared? Anybody you ask, I don't owe one person. I've never failed in my obligations. Again, this is on the backing of God, right? Because you don't claim or say you're a Christian or you're working in the principles of abundance and you are actually not straightforward. That can destroy any business. Every biography that I've read of great people who achieve greatness, the change must start with you. My kids are abroad. They're not living lavishly because we're not yet there. We are satisfied. We're grateful for what we have, where we are. And as opportunity comes by, we celebrate, even in those little moments. Some people think that the only time you can go on a vacation is when you're spending $10,000. It is not true. You can go on vacation by just changing hotels or just changing house. I've had times whereby I've driven my family from, Mississauga in Ontario, Canada, to Ottawa. And I have a friend that has a 5-bedroom that he bought. And I tell him, oh, we're coming to Ottawa. And this is where relationship comes. Relationship opens doors for you. And when we get to Ottawa, I have a room. I'm not paying for Airbnb. The only thing I have to fill is gas. I'm available to drive. I drive them. We have a good time. We go to the museum, it's free. We go to different spots, it's free. That experience are memories that your kids will remember for those 2-3 weeks that you're away. I knew I was going to be coming, I think that was the last trip before this one. I knew I was going to be coming to Nigeria. And I said, oh, there's a March break. Let's go on a trip. We went on a trip. We had quality time for, well, again, this is where it's tricky, right? Quality time in between, I was having meetings. But they had quality time. The kids had fun. My wife was also happy. She doesn't have to cook for that week. We had good time. We drove there. And we drove back. The other option would be, oh, I'm waiting for that perfect time whereby I have so much money, I can fly them, we can fly here, fly there. But what do you have in your hands? Because I'm a Christian, I'll give the narration of the story of the woman whose husband was a servant of God, and she spoke to Elisha. For those who are not Christians, you can just look it up. The woman, with the jar of oil, who basically was told to go out there. If she did not have good relational skills with her neighbors, she wouldn't have been given any jar. The first thing first is understanding your relationship with God and understanding the people God has placed around you and not misusing that opportunity. She had good relational skills with her neighbors. She got the jars. She followed the principles, the instruction. And immediately, those jars were filled. In the Bible, it was recorded that the oil stopped. If you read and you study the Bible, or you study that story, and you relate it to business, it means that you must think big. Most founders, most professionals think small. Some even think they cannot charge more than 500,000. Some cannot even imagine why somebody is charging $10,000 for just an hour session. When I did my MBA, and this is actually reflecting back to why I said I wanted to do my MBA, I saw how people, my consultants who were coming, people in business space who were coming to deliver sessions were telling us how they were charging in almost close to hundreds of thousands of pounds for their time. It opened my eyes. I had the opportunity of meeting with the founder of British, one of the British Mediterranean, and it told me how, he was able to grow. In fact, he told all of us in that session how the various challenges he went through and how he was able to overcome that. What he did, how he did, and how even without actually owning an aircraft, he had clarity of a picture showing that he had fleet of aircrafts. The laws of the universe does work. The principles of the Bible does work. Did he get his first aircraft? Yes. Did he finally sell to British Airways? Yes. Today, that airline is still working. It's still operating. It flies and covers all the Middle East regions. So it just starts with how far can you see and what is your stand? Who is your backing? Let's put it that way. Who is your backer? Your backer, not human being, but either God or the devil. You can't be in the middle. I hope I've been able to share a bit of light.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite deep. And these conversations are one of the reasons why I value this podcast, because not just because it's reflective, it also helps to see how other people are able to navigate certain life complexities. And I think you've been able to share some of your own coping mechanisms or structure that you build around you, which I really, really appreciate, for doing. But I still have a couple of questions for you, right? And that's because I sort of understand how you got to this junction. But if you could, say, redesign the configuration, not necessarily the ambition, because the ambition is clear, it's big, you understand? But just the arrangement, would you change it?
In terms of whether my family will be abroad and all that,
maybe your family will be abroad, or would you change anything in how you are, like today's dynamics of how you live and work?
I think at the moment, the answer will be no. But one thing, again, just to backtrack a bit, is the fact that it was not always like this. Myself and my family, we've gone through different paths. And one thing I'm grateful for is the fact that I did not jump the process. I had the opportunity to work with one of the best organizations in my early career. Like I said, I've lectured in 2 universities.
What universities are those?
So Alikma University, a private university.
Okay.
And I also, lectured in the University of Ilorin.
Okay.
And then I also had that early exposure to leadership quite early because of the privilege of going to Nigerian military school. Those formative years of early leadership, taking responsibility, actually groomed me to who I am today. And entering the corporate world, I was privileged to work with Stanbic IBTC, which gave me another perspective to life, helped me to understand basic things. However, that did not actually prepare me adequately for the business space, but I thought I was prepared. So when I left and jumped into the business space, I asked myself, are you actually out of your mind? Why did you not listen to all your mentors who told you to stay there? However, I suddenly and quickly learned how to stop blaming myself for the choices that I've made, but instead cutting out ways in which I can move forward with a heart of gratitude. For those who follow me closely, they know that every day on my status, I put it, today is a great day. Every day, today is a great day. Every day, today is a great day. And one thing I've seen happen is that every time I post that, the next post I post is actually something that has actually validated that
the previous post.
So on Friday, this Friday that just passed, I basically posted today was a great day in my room, and I went downstairs. We're at the meeting, at a partners meeting. And when I went downstairs for the meeting, I met with one of my mentors that I could never, he's been my mentor far away, Dr. Adeshina, the former president of the
AFDB.
I've never, ever imagined, one of my wishes has always been to meet with him. And just going downstairs, I saw him there. And one thing again, I need to tell you that, again, I gave you a bit of my background, right? Is the fact that military school gave me some edge. So I can walk up to anybody. A lot of people see those opportunities around them and they don't take use of it. Or when they do, they are going to ask for money. They're going to ask for things that are not tangible. That person will give you the money, but the money is going to finish. Instead of asking for money, I went there and I introduced what I was doing, the value we did, and how excited, I am meeting him, and I asked that he then become not a faraway mentor, but a close and accessible mentor. And today I'm proud that I have his number and I can engage him. However, what if I had thought small and not accepted the opportunity to become a partner for a greater good here in Nigeria? Because really, when you look at the numbers, initial numbers of this partnership that took me to Kenya, it didn't make sense. However, the mission was clear. Help the African young women entrepreneurs to grow and scale. Help them to have a different mindset. Help them to become much more sustainable, to become business owners that can scale and take care of their homes, their businesses, their communities. And this is something that I accepted. And by that, I was able to meet my mentor. Let me give another use case. In 2024, I was privileged to meet Professor Yemi Osibajo. The same scenario. When people have those kind of opportunities, they ask for something. Most times, quick gains because of this small mindset. I did not ask for that. Instead, I came with value. And today, I'm writing a book or reviewing one of my books, which I wrote in 2012. It's going to be writing the forward for me, right? Because of relationship. My first job after lecturing in University of Ilorin, Alekma University, was as a result of me actually taking that same first book, which I'm reviewing now with a new forward, to give as a gift to the registrar of the school, as a gift. So the question always arises in what has God placed in your hand? When I wanted to meet the former Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki, many years back, I went with value and a gift. So at every point in time of my life, the principles of what do you have? Peter in the Bible gave his boat to Christ to deliver a session. It was after that he was told to cast the nets, not nets. But because of his mindset, he casted just one net. And he struggled with the harvest. He had to call in partners to assist him. If there's anything that people need to take from this whole session, what you have control over is today. You don't have control over tomorrow. So I'm not going to change the dynamic because I've had different stages of my life, which has molded me to who I am today. Okay. But wherever you are at that stage of your life, especially within this context, what do you have? Can you volunteer? I brought Baba, former President Chief Olusegun, in 2023 for one of our events. The same year I said my co-founder left. People thought we were very okay. People thought, oh, if you would have brought Baba, it's... But the reality was, in that same year, before I could get access to Baba, I volunteered without even knowing that he was on that committee to foster trade between Congo and Nigeria. They asked me, are you willing to? There's no pay. I'm not going to pay you. I said, no problem. As long as it's about trade, as long as it's going to affect the MSMEs. I volunteered. And in the process, I found out that Baba was the chair, Elifai was there, and all that. And I said, oh, I'm actually having a program. Baba, will you come? And then they told Baba. And the next thing was he showed up.
Amazing.
And the reality is people think that Baba came there, gave me billions of naira. Yeah, that is the truth. But that's not the case. But he came and he added credibility to the work that we do. He was able to engage with the thousands of MSMEs who were present that day, both online and offline. He was able to visit the booths of those businesses that we support. And actually, we did spend money to ensure that everything happened in partnership with different brands. So, if you don't get anything, I can't change the past. I'm not going to change the dynamics of all the learnings I've had. But I'm going to work on today so that tomorrow will be better.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I like how you reinforce the fact that every day is going to be a good day. And somehow you just, because it's been said, it sort of manifests. And this is just a curious thought, right? Is there anything like a bad day for you? What has that looked like? Especially within the context of this conversation where you're navigating these geographical complexities.
Yeah. I would say yes. I would say no.
Okay.
Because the reality is it has its plus and minus. There have been times whereby I've lost opportunities because I'm not physically around. And when I say opportunities, people love to see you a lot. People love to see you. When you're not there, they sometimes think, okay, it's not there. So I've had opportunities whereby people just believe that, oh, it's not there. There are some I might not be able to give absolute context, but let me just, speak about an opportunity. Excuse me. There are some meetings that basically might be impromptu, and they say, oh, there's the meeting XYZ, and most often times I would have had or wanted to be there. And courtesy of the fact that you're not there or you're not available, you might miss. I can't really speak into specific because of non-disclosure of some of those natures of those opportunities. However, what I've done since 2024 till now is to invest heavily in my leaders. John C. Maxwell says that you have to build other leaders. You have to, if you want to up your game, you have to build other leaders. So today, I've been able to build a system that I have leaders who can go to programs and have conversations unless it's absolutely necessary for the CEO to be there. So I am not really scared about impromptu meetings, and I consider opportunities that are lost as probably not mine. I consider those as maybe not mine. So in terms of, do I have a bad day? Bad days will be probably when things don't go the way I want it to go. However, instead of complaining or dwelling on it, I ask myself, in the middle of this, what opportunity am I not seeing? And for context, right, when that transaction didn't go well,
The same transaction that you talked about.
2025 transaction.
Yeah.
Systems are in place, obviously, to get the money back, and funds are coming back. Am I going to dwell on it, or am I going to focus forward? I think too many often times we choose to dwell too much on what we don't have control over. So in the process of dwelling on it, you don't see the opportunity looking around. When that money came in 2022, I had two choices. One, you've always said you want to do your MBA. Go do it. You have a scholarship, at least part scholarship. Go do it. Or use the 50K and become a big boy here in Nigeria.
That's another way to look at it.
So the choices we make every day, $50,000 then was good money.
It's a lot of
still
money.
Good money.
It's a lot of money now.
It wasn't an investment to the business. It wasn't affiliated to anything. It was to me. And I could have used that 50K to pursue the other company, which is a very popular brand. I'm a bit scared to mention their name, but they know themselves. I'm sure maybe some of their partners might watch this and maybe pursue the case. But I just decided to just take the high side, move on. They made a mistake. Somebody obviously would have been fired for doing that. It's bad enough. So every time a bad day happens, or a supposedly bad day happens, there's always a good day around the corner. Because whenever I say it's a good day, my tentacles, my insights, everything around me opens to see opportunities in every situation. Most likely, maybe if I had not said it's a good day, I wouldn't have seen Dr. Adeshina there. If I don't say it's a good day, I wouldn't have told my system or everything that builds my person that you need to look out for opportunities. And sometimes, and oftentimes, I go into transactions and deals that I don't even have the money. But there's a saying that when there's a vision, there's a provision. The word provision is what? Pro and vision. So it means that the pro only comes when there's a vision. So I go into transactions, I go into these, I go into engagement without actually having it all figured out. But oftentimes, either as founders, either as executives or professionals, we go into conversations thinking that we are on the taking side or on the receiving side or on the disadvantaged side. My first ever investment in my business in 2019 was me looking at when Andela sacked most of their staff. And I poached all their developers, or at least most of them. I just downloaded all the list from what I could see, either on Checkpoint or TechAbout or any of those things. And I started reaching out to all of them on LinkedIn and different channels. Do you want to work with me? I'm building something amazing. It's going to be the next big stuff. If you join me now, we're going to make it work. And the reality is I didn't really have money. So I needed to set the vision to them to make them buy in, then build with me. And then I asked them, how much will you take? 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 And everybody told me, I said, no problem. Don't worry, I'll pay you. The reality is I didn't have the money. But what did I have? I had a 3-bedroom. Or you say 2-bedroom then? I think a 2-bedroom actually. Yeah, 2-bedroom. And I knew they had issue of accommodation. So I said, see, don't worry. I have food. My wife is a chef. She knows how to cook very well. At least I can eat and cook and everything, right? So I told them, you're going to be sleeping in this room. You guys, this is my parlor. It's yours now. Just your responsibility is I'm not giving you upfront money. Code it. And then by this time of XYZ, I'll give you the money. And then you eat free food. There's light. There's a bed to sleep. There's a toilet to shower and everything you need. Just code it. And we'll sign that I will still pay you. When it was time to pay, I actually didn't have the money. And I simply posted, I need $10,000. And I was very clear on what I wanted to use the $10,000 to do, which was to pay those guys. And someone commented, check your inbox. And then within 24 hours, actually, I got the $10,000 cash and I paid everybody. Provision.
Right. Thanks for sharing that. I believe, you mentioned you have kids, and I want to ask if they understand what you do and if that sort of if it makes it any easy in any way, or if it changes anything for you.
So they don't understand why daddy has to travel every time. Yeah, that's the truth. They don't understand it. But whenever
are they young? Is it because they are young?
Yeah, they are young.
Okay.
The eldest will be 9 this year, and the last will be 4 this year.
Okay.
So they're still relatively young. But one of the things that has also helped is when I'm working, they have the opportunity of seeing some of the things. There have been times whereby I was on TV, they maybe are shown maybe by their mom, or I'm somewhere, and the times they've had the privilege of coming to Nigeria, they see me, doing the work and the impact it has, the impact stories. Those are things we share together. We use it as a way of just bonding together. So they can see the stories, even if they don't really understand it, they can say, okay, this is what daddy is going to do. And in some cases, they can question me and say, why are you doing this? Why are you going this way? Why are you doing that? And I can explain to them in their own way why I have to do what I have to do. But yes, they don't quite understand it yet. But I have to give kudos to my wife.
Okay.
Because she's actually, I used to call her a superwoman. They say every military wife is a superwoman, right? But I also want to say that every entrepreneur's wife is a superwoman. She's able to take that side of me as a husband and me as an entrepreneur. And I think she's able to help and shape the narrative for my kids. And with that in mind, I have peace. Like, I don't have to worry myself about whether my kids are safe, whether or not. There have been times whereby I want to talk, especially the last one, where she doesn't want to talk to me because she feels like I've been away for so long. In those moments, my spouse is able to step in and bridge the gap and explain the reasons why dad is away, to her in her own little way. So that really helped.
So somewhere, somehow, I feel like Trade Lenda exists because of these configurations, whether it's, it's forced or it's enabled, but it exists because of that. Do you think you could have built what you are building differently if the arrangement was different and if your family was here and then the weight was distributed differently?
I think we would have built what we're building, but maybe with a different lens. Today, when we're building for that young, micro, small, and medium scale business, that young woman, that youth, we use that an analogy of a chair in a partners meeting, during the Africa Growth Fund meeting, partners meeting recently. And when we're building for that young woman or youth, if I did not have the lens to which I have today, I would basically be building for a local champion alone. Because if I didn't have all this opportunity to build the way I'm building today, I would most likely have been building for that young, micro entrepreneur or small and medium scale entrepreneur, the women and youth, in a different way. We would have been building Trade Lenda to be able to support that young woman to have access to finance alone. But in itself, access to finance in itself doesn't create jobs. An ecosystem creates jobs.
Make me understand that better in terms of when you see an ecosystem create jobs, because we've simply not talked about Trade Lenda, and for me it's delivery, because the conversation started as being you and your family dynamics, but at some point we were going to talk about the business. But this, I think, is an interesting time to broach the subject. So, what does that ecosystem look like, in your opinion?
So, by ecosystem, it simply means who are the movers and shakers, who are the policy makers, who are the determinants of the market, who even determine the kind of sources of capital that comes into the country. We talk about the startup ecosystem. 90% of the successful, in quotes, startups are not Africans incorporated. They have holdcos in the US. You want me to mention names? I'm sure you know some of them. If they're not incorporated in the United States, they're incorporated in the UK. If you look at the dynamics, or Canada, obviously, if you look at the dynamics, it means that it takes a village to actually support that micro young women and youths who are building on the continent. That farmer in Gombe, that smallholder farmer in Ekpe, that smallholder farmer in Oro, in Kwara State, or Plateau State, in Sakindadi, it takes a village. So every of these players, some of them who don't even understand what it means to have domiciliation of funds in Africa, actually indirectly and directly shapes how these funds get to impact that young woman and youth on their seats. So with all of this whole perspective and these opportunities to think global and some of the partnerships and discussions that I've been able to have courtesy of the fact that I have access to the global frontier, it's helped me to not just be on the side, but to actually take a seat in shaping those policies, in shaping those conversations, in shaping how those co-creations actually happen. I had an opportunity to discuss with a DFI, and so many often times they make that mistake. Now, this is not to discredit them. This is not, to make them feel little, but oftentimes you need a blend of the global and the local. I've been privileged to have both global and local. So when I'm talking, I'm not talking from a perspective of what is obtainable only locally or what is obtainable globally. Too many often times the people who make these decisions only have the global perspective. They don't understand the local. And the locals don't know how to find a cross section of the way the global think and the way the local think. So, therefore, we are differentializing that young woman from actually getting that access that she needs. Because we've not conditioned or co-created what works for her. And for those who understand global alone, they talk on the global front without actually reaching that distribution of that young woman. And for those who understand local alone, they don't get access. I've seen so many times where founders who are building purely local are doing a whole lot of work, so much amazing work, but they never get the opportunity to scale their impact. When I look around some of my mentees, I tell them, you need to think differently. But sometimes you need to be able to see or understand how these people think. Who are the top people in most of these organizations? Not local. They're not people who schooled and did all their life in Nigeria or in Kenya They have a broad touch. If you can mention one organization that is the ecosystem, in quotes, that is deciding the capital source into Africa or into Nigeria, that the person at the top is purely local. One. Again, this is actually whoever maybe in the comment section for those who are going to be watching after this. One organization who makes decisions, critical decisions for Africa, critical decisions that is purely local. I don't think I've seen one at that scale.
So this might be a little bit, I hope this is not something that ends up being very controversial. I get the perspective and I quite understand why that pipeline development between local and international and then being in the room to be able to create that bridge is very important. But just, to put a bit of a response to the last statement you made, if you ask me one person, so would I be wrong to say someone like the Flutterwave CEO isn't local?
Where's Flutterwave?
I might be wrong. So this is also...
Let's start with first. Where's Flutterwave incorporated?
Over.
So it doesn't cut it.
But the conversion was critical decision maker.
At some point in time, to get to the scale of where he is, needs to touch. Have you forgotten when late Albert took him abroad? There has to be a touch. It takes a village. And that village is no longer just Nigeria or Africa. It's the globe. Let me bring it a bit home to what people can relate with. There's a current issue between the United States and the other party. Is it affecting globally in terms of oil prices? Today I met one of our partners and I was having a conversation with him on why their products are not available because we just financed one of their vendors who then happened to go to another distributor for the product that they would have had. And he said, because of the war, their products are having to be rerouted and it's going to take another extra 3 to 6 weeks before it arrives. That guy can't wait for another 3 to 6 weeks and has gone to another vendor. And the prices of oil and other things gone up as a result of that disruption of the war? Yes. issue of Russia and the rest, is it affecting everybody in terms of agricultural products, soya, feeds? Yes. When I say ecosystem, I'm not saying there's somebody that is superior, there's somebody that is inferior. I'm just saying that you need to be able to, at some point, interject from a global perspective to be able to get to the scale of conversations and also influencing decisions. Because if you keep quiet, and this is what happens in Nigeria a lot of times before they pass any law into, bill, there's always a public hearing. How many Nigerians contribute to the various submissions? How many? There is never a bill that gets passed without it going into the public conversation. How many people are even aware that such things are in the public for you to contribute? Or you can even come and make a presentation. That is the process. That is the rule. People often talk about it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. Because of that small mindset that is not for everybody. But by the time you get to that point where you change your mindset and then you know that you have a voice. You know that you need to learn what processes you need to take to be able to learn that voice and influence that policy and shape that policy and be part of those that will shape that policy that takes that micro young entrepreneur to be able to benefit, have a better life, contribute towards the society. And then, only then, will our generations, the next generations, thank us for the efforts that we did for the continent.
That's a strong one. To be quite honest, I've never thought about it from the angle where I know founders move because they want to be closer to investors. They want to, but it's just never occurred to me that sometimes it could also be about deepening the connection between infrastructure and then the knowledge gap and then impact that it has ultimately on the people who it needs to reach and understand that. And also from the lens of the conversation that we're having, because I've never in my imagination did I think about it in that scope or context.
Yeah, let me just chip in here. Why do we say Africa is the next big thing? Do you know why?
Because we have the resources, the people.
So that is just one perspective in terms of my own opinion.
Okay.
That is a valid point. But the rate at which Africans have positioned themselves globally, within the next few years, decisions will be shaped by those same Nigerians and Africans towards impacting Africa. It's already happening. It's already happening. And because we have the people, we have the intellectuals, I don't think there's any country where you don't see Nigerians, you run away from that country, right? It means that country is bad. Even in Russia, there are Nigerians. I'm not saying Russia is bad anyway. But all across, doing amazing stuff, they never forget home. For those that are forward-thinking, they never forget home. And one day, if they are on track, they will be in that position to shape policy that would influence back Africa.
So I understand why it's critical that conversation needs to be had and, people need to be in those rooms. I'm also a bit concerned or worried that it has to start from there.
It doesn't have to start from there. Most of
because there are lives on the ground here. So, does it need to happen over there, or does it need to start from there and then become imported, if that's the word?
No, it's not imported. Let me give
lack of a better word, basically.
Yeah, it's not imported actually. Let me give a bit of use case. You are appointed the president of Nigeria tomorrow. And you have to choose between qualified people. You have 20 candidates who are equally qualified. You have just 10 slots. You have 5 people that you know already. Who would you pick?
The temptation to want to start with your loyal followers or your loyal people.
Okay, so
There's
if you had
temptation
to
for
pick
that.
only 5.
I mean that's like one place to start. I'm just trying to like,
Because they are equally qualified.
yes.
So let's break it up in another different way. Most of these engagements today, you talk about Flutterwave, you talk about Paystack, you talk about all of that. Capital started more from there. But does it mean that we don't have local capital? No, we do have local capital. And those are conversations that people who have seen the impact of some of these transactions, people like us, people like different other partners that we work with on the global front, are actually ensuring that there's domiciliation in Africa. That indeed different structured funds, investment vehicles focused on Africa are championed from pension funds, from different other channels to ensure that we have full control about what we're doing here. Are you saying that before now, the pension fund didn't know that they should fund local? I don't even think there's any world leader, or let's not even go too far to world leader, Nigerian leader, who does not have a touch of abroad. Whether it's a training, Santos or whatever, or something, who has become a world leader. For context, maybe one day I'll become the president of this country. I don't want to speak local. I want to be able to understand how decisions made from the backyard of the White House influences my country and how I can influence it. I want to be able to understand how decisions with the Prime Minister of Canada influences my country. I want to be able to know how decisions by the President of Russia influences my decision. That's why you then have ambassadors who are supposed to then engage and lobby. And that is why they also have ambassadors in Nigeria, in African countries, because you cannot work in isolation. It takes a village. Ghanaian president once made a joke that if we don't take care of our brothers, referring to Nigerians, it's going to be a disaster for Ghanaians because they can't afford to have 200 million people coming to Ghana.
Coming to Ghana.
It's a joke, but it's just context.
Yeah.
That every time you must, it's not about importing because it's an ecosystem, it's a village. That's why you call it global village. It takes that global village to operate. It's no longer, oh, I'm building for Nigeria and it's only Nigeria. Oh, I'm building for China and it's only, even China are coming to Africa to see how they can have influence so that they can enjoy the market. So you, as African, must also understand how all of them connect and influence those policies and shape those policies and have those conversations at that trust level of relation so that way it can shape the future we all want for our dear country.
Thank you so much, Adeshina. You really spent time going deep into not just within your family dynamics in terms of the decision that spurred it and how you're navigating that. I also like how you've also used that to show what those kind of decisions can also mean in the more broader perspective. And I know that a lot of people would watch this right now and already living some version of, this kind of life right now. And a lot cannot even name it. I mean, I feel like you're one of those people who have done this with intentionality and you sort of like have your own kind of compass. A lot of people did not have that. You mentioned earlier that you spoke to people and then some sort of like supported your own resolve, right? But some people do not have that proper guidance or framework or structure, or let alone this much level of understanding, right? But regardless, is there anything you wished that someone had told you before you entered this configuration? Is there anything you wish anyone had mentioned to you?
I think I got quite good counsel
Okay.
because of the communities that I belong to. However, what I want to rephrase for the purpose of those who did not get those opportunities, who may be left for the wrong reasons because their friends are going or for the friends are leaving, I would say that there's still an opportunity to shape the future. And if you jackpot or you moved or you relocated for the wrong reasons, don't stay there. It takes time to settle abroad. However, in those times whereby you are going there, you are going to pub, to go and drink, to go and relax, to go and socialize. For those who don't understand what drink means, spend that time putting yourself in the places that matter. While I was doing my MBA in the United Kingdom, I was meeting with the members of House of Lords. I was knocking on doors that matters. I was going into communities, subcommittees that were driving financial inclusion. Because again, like I mentioned, I've always been solving for that young, micro, small, and medium-scale business. Even the United Kingdom have access issues of financial inclusion for their MSMEs, for their businesses, business owners. So they have subcommittees in which for Southwest then, I was able to get into and shape policies that were being decided for them. They were not in the room. But somebody has to be in the room and make advocacy for them.
Yeah.
I was able to. Coming to Canada, I didn't just sit down. I asked myself, who is my MP? My MP now can't say she doesn't know me because I've engaged in the community. I've engaged in our office. I've had sit down round tables to discuss on how can we foster growth for Africa and Canada, for the community and all. Don't just be at the receiving side. It's not enough. There's no standard that says you have to go abroad. You start like this, then you go like this more, you go like this. That is the template that people give. You have to work in healthcare. You have to do menial job. Again, there's dignity
Social
in
service.
labor. There's dignity in labor. I will re-echo that for those who are watching. There's dignity in labor. Do any job that puts food on the table. However, while you are doing it, don't blind your mind that is all you can do. Don't blind your eyes that is all you can do. Gone for the top. Shoot for the stars. Take that course. Go through that meeting. Spend that money. Sacrifice that money that you could have used for luxury and go into that meetings and have those paid conversations with leaders who are actually shaping your community.
Interesting. So I've had a very enjoyable time in this conversation, learning as much as I can. And I think that whoever is watching, or for the audience who would also be listening and watching to this, there's so much to also take away as well. But see that you're a father, you're a husband, and you are a founder, right? You're living all these three different lives across distance that people don't fully understand, right? When you look back at all of these decisions, right, not just the business, is there anything you know now that you wish you had known just before the start of it?
Yeah, I would say the principles of life are the same. A lizard is a lizard, whether it's in Africa or whether it's in the United Kingdom or Canada or United States. You need to be intentional. You can succeed in Africa. You can succeed anywhere. When you move abroad, most people take menial jobs that they refuse to do when they're in Nigeria. When you move abroad, most people find dignity in jobs that they would not take. Most people change their work ethics. You call someone abroad during his work shift, he doesn't pick up because he's at work. You call someone here in Nigeria, he picks up. You tell him, bros, can you help me go and pick up that thing? He say yes, during work hours. He goes. You call some employees during work hours. They're in the market because, in quotes, there's work from home. Bro, people don't do that. From home, it's not a privilege to leave your decks. You sit with your table, with your decks. Again, maybe that is not answering the question, right? But basically, it's what maybe would change. And for people in diaspora, the work ethics, the mindsets, and those that are listening even in Nigeria, don't wait till you're abroad till you change your work ethics. If you deliver the way you deliver abroad in Nigeria, we would all be contributing towards the positive change that we need. So I think that might be my own 2 cents. Because even right now, the way I work, the way my mindset works is like times 10. I expect people to deliver without excuses. And if you have excuses or blockers, you should, be able to declare that you have that. Not wait. That's just a different mindset, which I think just having that global orientation helps you, imbibe. I don't believe in, yes, I've always had that a bit right from here, but I don't believe in the word impossible. You tell people there's a deadline, and they're telling you, they're telling you 1,001 reasons why they can't do it, why they can't achieve it, without even trying. But when you know that if you don't get it done abroad, you don't get paid. We have this relational stuff a lot in Africa, whereby we just believe, you're my brother, you're my
Yeah, my
sister,
guy.
come and stay in the house, you're not paying rent. You don't have such abroad. You're in the house, you're not paying, you're not contributing towards the utility, you're going to kick you out. Even whether it's your brother, whether it's your sister. It just takes a while. They might allow you for the first 2 weeks, for the first 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. But it gets to a point where they're telling you, guy, what are you doing? But here in Nigeria and Africa, you see someone 40 and he's still staying in his father's house. I don't think that makes sense. So perhaps some shift needs to.
So my final question, thank you so much, Adeshina.
Yeah.
This has been eye-opening, but I'm going to take this final question for someone out there who is also weighing the build against present, especially when it comes to already living in that configuration, or for someone maybe who's about to, and then they're also weighing ambition against that arrangement. What do you think they need to be honest about themselves before they leave?
I would say, are you emotionally ready for those who have not left?
Okay.
Do you have systems to make sure that the business continues to grow and scale? Are you totally committed to the business, or it's just a side hustle? If it's a side hustle, then you're just self-employed.
And this is for founders.
Yeah, this is for founders.
I also want you to be, broadly speaking, beyond just founders too.
For executives, are you having enough, flow of income that can get you steady, for the first few months? Because not everybody goes abroad and gets jobs. It's not. People think that immediately you just land abroad, just give you a job. Take
at
a
the
new
airport.
job. Yeah, at the airport, they just give it to you. See your new job. It doesn't work that way. People stay 6 months. Someone once mentioned to me that, it's the abroad people that always snap picture and post online. That's why everybody thinks everything is okay for them. Some of them are having silent tears, depression. Young people without the right mindset are abroad and dying. That doesn't mean in quote, people of other colors are not also begging on the street, right? But it's not be well ready. Be well ready. It's not a walk in the park, right? So if you have not left, be sure that you're ready for it. But above all, mindset, God will be a very strong. Because when the chips are down, you ask yourself, were you actually supposed to be there? And if you're there already, if you're a founder, how is that impacting your business? Is it suffering? Is something going down? You know? If it is, and you strongly want to build, come back. There's no shame. There's no shame. A whole lot of people have gone abroad, stayed abroad, and come back. Get their passport, get something else. So come back. You know? Some don't even wait for the passport, they come back. And then they contribute meaningfully to the building of our continent, Africa. But if you're working there, gain the experience, build strategic network. One of the things that I wish I learned long and many years ago was to have really, really deepened much more strategic relationship while I was at Stanbic IBTC. My early investors, apart from Dr. Ben Peter, were people who had affiliations with me while I was Stanbic, while I was at Stanbic IBTC. So imagine I had many more strategic relationships. In fact, some of the doors I still use till today in terms of credible partners, liquidity providers, are former Stanbic colleagues who knew the work that I delivered, who have trusted me over the years. So while you are there, invest in those relationships so that when you come back, if you come back, you would have those people that you can use to foster that engagement. And if you remain there, you also have a support system. Because one of the difficult parts, which I think I didn't really emphasize a lot, is support systems. It's lacking a lot. You go into a new country, you don't know anybody. Where does your kids go to play? They have to build new friends. You have to build new people. You want to leave the house, you want to go on a dinner with your wife, who is going to be with the kids? Especially when they are young, when they are not at that age where they can be alone. So you literally don't have a life. If you don't have support systems, if you don't build support systems intentionally, then you don't have a community, you don't have families you can rely on, you don't have where you can send the kids to. Or is it every time you want to be paying for a nanny? It's not cheap. So those are some of the struggles that people abroad, So if you're abroad, don't stay in isolation. Even if you're single today, you're going to be married one day. You're going to have kids. Now that you're single, can you invest and be available with people? It's not all about work. The more you work, the more they tax you anyway. So why kill yourself with work? Work, pay the bills, but have a life. Have a 4 quadrants. Spirituality, whether it's the devil, whether it's God, have time for your family. And if you don't have a family yet, have time for other people around you, families of people around you. If you have a business, focus on that. If you have a job, focus on that. And the other part, which cannot be overemphasized. Personal development and well-being. That is the only way you remain relevant. And that is the only way you have this body to remain healthy for you to continue to work and live. Without that, you're going to die one day or die early. And all of it will not make sense. So for it to make sense, have a greater purpose than just you. Most people go abroad with just themselves in mind. Me. And it's not just abroad, even Nigeria. People stay out in Nigeria to have just, if you put water in a bucket and it's not been changed, it doesn't flow. It becomes smelly. It becomes dirty. If you put a water to keep flowing, it's clean. Stop being a container. Become a channel. I think the bulk of this thing, if there's nothing that any of our listeners gain today, is stop thinking about yourself. Think about what you can do for others. Think about how you, in your own little way, can be a blessing to another person, to your continent, to where you are living, whether it's your community abroad or here or wherever. Think about what you can do. Don't just about what you can take. I've had the privileges of sitting with Global Affairs Canada within these last few months. with MasterCard Foundation, with MIDA, amazing people, amazing organizations with my MP and all that. Stop thinking about what you can get. What can you offer? What can you give? What can you contribute to the greater, bigger purpose?
Powerful. Thank you so much, Adeshina. Like I'm sure this is speaking to someone out there. This has been very enlightening for me, and I'm glad that I'm able to do this with someone who has lived through the experience as Adeshina. If this is you, then you need to watch this. And please give us a like, a share, and a subscribe. Thank you so much. Thank you, Adeshina, for doing this.
Thank you very much.